Most communication over the internet these days is encrypted, and that's a good thing because you don't want anyone to know what you're telling the server, for example, your street address or something, and you don't want anyone to know what the server is telling you, for example, what it is that you're currently viewing there, what you're ordering there, or whatever. But there's another problem here. It's not just about hiding that message from other viewers, it's also ensuring that you're really talking to the server, because there's such a thing as a man-in-the-middle attack. I mean, the internet isn't magic. There's lots of computers, lots of cables, data, programming, and that's all there is to it. So how do you make sure that there's no one listening in pretending to be the other dude, but you know, he's just decrypting it and then handing it over to the server then handing to the man in the middle, and the man in the middle back to you. You will never be the wiser. How does that work? Since that is such a fundamental thing in our lives these days, I think everybody should know how that actually works. So here's the short version of it, but comprehensive enough, really. I mean, it should allow you really to build that entire thing in principle. So encryption classically works like this. You have a key that no one knows except the other guy that you want to communicate with. They also have that key. So you will jumble your message somehow according to whatever encryption scheme you came up with. And then you hand over that message, which someone might glance, but they will not be able to decipher it because it's so jumbled, it's so noisy, it cannot be deciphered by them. But the recipient has that same key, that same encryption scheme, so they will be able to decrypt it now. Basically, by the way, the safest and really absolutely uncrackable for all eternity method to encrypt something is one-time pad. You take a message of whatever it is, so maybe a story you wrote, an email, anything, and you will just flip some random bits, ideally like half of them, and the result will just be noise. And then you hand over that noise to the other guy. Anyone in the middle cannot make any heads or tails from it, because anything they decipher would be true to them. I mean, it's really not clear what is being said. It can mean anything. It means anything and everything and nothing to them. But the problem is, once again, the other guy needs to have that private key. And the problem with the one-time pad OTP encryption that I'm describing here is that you cannot use that same one-time pad multiple times, because the more you're using it, someone glancing your message, someone listening in, can piece all those things together and then use some probabilistic analysis, like saying, hey, the character E often occurs in principle, so let's see if we find some pattern here that might point us towards that, and then they can begin to decipher your one-time pad. But okay, that's beside any and all points. That's symmetrical encryption, and this particular example that I just gave you, unrelated to this video in principle, is this uncrackable one-time pad encryption. But okay, so asymmetrical encryption, that's a problem. But in the 70s, some clever mathematicians, aka mathematicians, figured out some way to asymmetrically encrypt something. You would create a private and a public key, that's a pair. That's one encryption key, a part is public and one part is private. Everybody can and actually shall have the public key, so they can encrypt a message and send it to you then. Everybody can see the encrypted message, but no one can decrypt it. Only you can, because you have the private key, and so you need to really keep it private. And if the other guy has that same kind of concept going for them with their personal public and private key, then you can now talk with each other in a way that no one can really decipher. And you didn't even have to meet each other first to exchange some kind of suitcase with some keys or something. And that is a revolution. And this is the foundation of all communication on the internet. Well, it's not like all your communication with a server is encrypted in this asymmetric way. Classic encryption comes into play, because asymmetric encryption is a heavy load on the computers involved. But only the initial communication is established with public and private key concept. Because, well, you are sending some information to the server with their public key. You're telling them, this is now the symmetric encryption, noisy key thing, whatever, that I want to use so that we can talk with each other. That will be classical symmetric encryption henceforth, which is light on the computers relatively. But to establish that, you need to first give them that private key, give them that hidden key that both of you need to use. And to do that safely so that no one can listen in, you use the public key of the server that you're talking to. And here's the problem. How do you know that the public key you received is the public key of the server that you are desiring to talk to. I mean, if you type Microsoft.com in your web browser, how can you be sure that you're really talking to them without any man-in-the-middle shenanigans? Well, this is how it's implemented. When you're talking to that server, it will send you its public key, just unencrypted. It will send you, hey, this is the public key, use that henceforth to establish the symmetric standard classic encryption scheme by giving me whatever encryption key you will now think up in the next few seconds. Here's my public key. Send that to me. Send it to me. I will decrypt that with my private key that no one has, and then we can talk with classic encryption that no one can crack because no one has that classic encryption key that we then share, that you thought up and gave to me. But how can it be ensured that the public key that you're receiving from that server is really their public key? And here's how that works. The server doesn't just give you their public key. They also give you a signature. That signature you can verify, and so is ensured that the public key received is really that from Microsoft. But how does that work, that signature? And that is that one moment in the entire chain where the math is flipped, where a public and private key concept comes into play that is inverted. That is when an authority that exists, that does these signatures, uses their private key to encrypt the "okay, this is valid, you can believe them" message. And then there's a public key that everybody knows, so everybody can decrypt this "okay", not a problem, but they will know who encoded it. They will know that this authority was indeed the one who formulated that "okay". Now, it's not like this "okay" is being requested every moment, every time you are trying to establish connection with the server. That only happens occasionally. There's basically there are various windows and various concepts. There's a blacklist, public blacklisting. There's push information that your computer might receive that something is no longer valid, is blacklisted. Because what if, for example, the private and public key pair of, for example, Microsoft slipped out? Now hackers, man in the middle, can actually inject themselves in the entire process, and when that is known, that will of course be that key will be blacklisted. Microsoft will get a new one, and so you need to this signature that Microsoft is sending you with their public key. Of course, it needs to be verified every once in a while whether that signature is still a valid signature. But all of that is established. That is standard fare. So again, you are connecting to some computer on the internet. It will send you a public key and a signature. Your computer receives the public key and the signature. Your computer will decrypt the signature with a known public key of that authority, because your computer basically came pre-installed with its knowledge of these authorities, so including their public keys. So you will decrypt that then with the public key that you have, that signature, you will decrypt it, and then you will know this signature was made indeed by that authority, because only that authority has the private key that could have produced this proper message that I could decrypt with the public key of that authority. Only that authority could have done that with its private key. So you know that this "okay" regarding the public key that Microsoft is sending you regarding the communication that you will now establish is indeed okayed by that authority. So now you know that public key is valid. Now, then you will use that public key, like shown here on screen, to encrypt your the key that you now thought up for classic encryption, some noise, some random stuff, high entropy numbers, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or George, and this is low entropy information, and also a low entropy password if you would be using that. No, it has to be like 17- minus uppercase T, lowercase m, blah blah blah, completely chaotic. So that is really highly entropic. That means it doesn't have a system that could be deciphered. That should apply to your passwords, or you could just make a long passphrase like I cannot see green, but yellow I can see! ! It's pretty long, but I mean, who the fuck would come up with that kind of sentence? That's a pretty safe password for your password manager. Of course, you're using password managers, right? KeePass, for example. It's a local program I'm using here where I have all my passwords in it, and to access all my passwords, I need one master password that is a passphrase. I have a longer sentence there that I type in there, and then I have access to them, and then I have access to all my passwords that are just openly in that program in that moment when it's decrypted. Anyway, so then your computer will think up some high entropy crap that is random and new, and then it will send that back to the server encrypted with a public key. And then the server will decrypt that with its private key, and then both of you know that classic encryption scheme key, and then you will just talk normally, like normally encrypted. Yeah. That's how that works. And if you haven't grasped it after watching this video, then I guess you just have to watch it again, because I believe it was all explained. See you again next time.